I would have lived in peace, but my enemies brought me war. Last week I finished Red Rising, the first book in the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown, and I had a really good time with this. This is the second time I have read this book. I first read this, came across this all the way back in 2022. I was fresh out of college, and I had not read like a science fiction or fantasy novel in like 4 years besides A Song of Ice and Fire. I was just too busy. I had my degree in theology. I was reading a lot, all right? Just to let you guys know, I was reading a lot. So I didn't have time to read fantasy or fiction or anything. And I was like driving to work one day, and I was like, man, I should like start reading books again. And I had a friend very strongly recommend me Audible. So I downloaded Audible, and I like cleared Mistborn, I cleared Stormlight Archive, and I was kind of looking for my next thing. And I had heard a lot of hype about this series, and at first I was like, this sounds kind of lame. It sounds like Hunger Games ripoff, like this first book. I'm just not sure. But then, I had a credit come up, and I was like, well, if I don't like it, no biggie. I can just return it. So I bought it, and I read it, and I just kept buying. I bought literally the next two in sequence. I ripped through the second and third one stupidly fast. I killed Iron Gold in like a week. I killed Dark Age in a week. I killed Lightbringer as soon as it came out. Like I was obsessed. I was obsessed when this thing came out. And coming back around to this, I was like, this was like a very early like influence in what I like to read as an adult. And I was hoping that I would like this, but I was also afraid like my taste had changed too much, because I like to think that I've become like a better reader, or maybe more introspective now that I'm older. But sometimes I also have to admit to myself that I am in fact just a dude. I am in fact just a dude who does really like action. He really likes violence sometimes, and Red Rising is absolutely that. This is definitely 100% my go-to popcorn series, because this is an action popcorn movie distilled into a book, and it's just so much fun. That is really what I can say about Red Rising. You can say whatever you want about the character work or the world building or whatever, or even if this one is a YA entree, I don't care. This is a fun book to read, and sometimes that is all I want, is something that's not going to be like, oh, like that was depressing, or oh, that was boring. Sometimes I just want to read something very fun, and that is what Red Rising is to a T. Obviously, a lot of bad stuff happens in this series. A lot of really graphic, violent things happen in this series, and I will talk about them when I get to them. But like, it's also just a nonsensical, nonstop, just adrenaline rush of a series. Things just like Darrow is like literally the living embodiment of him. I feel like his superpower is luck. Like he's got luck on his side. And you know what? Some people might complain or say, Izzy, that's not being fair. But like, I'm not complaining, guys. Personally, I don't mind if Darrow is a Gary Sue or not, because it's enjoyable either way. You can make an argument either way. I wouldn't care. I really wouldn't, because he is a very like fun protagonist to follow. Yeah, he's got some corny lines. Yeah, he's a hell diver, and he's the Reaper of Mars, and that can be corny. But like, sometimes I do just want to watch like a corny action movie. I grew up with like Schwarzenegger and Stallone, so maybe that's a huge influence on me, but like, I'm okay with corny sometimes. I'm okay with something being goofy, and I feel like Red Rising does that. Pierce Brown is having a good time with it. A lot of people take this series very seriously, and that's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't, because there are some very serious moments, but like, for me, like, I just think of it as like a very fun action series, and I don't think much more than that. Like, the world building's really solid in this, the character work's really solid in this, the pacing in this is just absolutely nuts. The way Pierce Brown writes violence is just incredible. I think he's genuinely one of the best action writers of his era. He's one of my favorite action writers. I think he does it very well, and I'm very curious to see what he does with Red God. But yeah, there's just so much about this book I like. I really like the premise. I think the idea of somebody from a low caste system rising up and taking over and trying to beat all the people at the top. Very poignant for the like society that we live in today. You know, it would be nice if something like this happened IRL, but you know, the idea, the premise is really cool. The plot here, where Darrow goes to the Institute, I like it a lot. You know, like this is definitely probably the most YA Hunger Games ripoff one of the series, but like I still think it's different enough to like be interesting. I feel like the approach here was pretty cool. I really like how they had all the different house wars and stuff. Like that was interesting to me. I like Darrow as a character. I like seeing him take a leadership role, and I like to see the side characters start to develop here and become their own people, and Darrow start learning his lessons that he will need for the rest of this series. I thought this as an introductory novel was really solid. I think this is Pierce Brown's first ever published work, and honestly, for a first published work, very impressive in my opinion. Like I don't think, you know, if you're, you know, like experienced reader, you're going to have your socks completely blown off or anything, but this is like a very fun series. I feel like if you're looking to just have a very enjoyable time with some very enjoyable characters, with a lot of action, a lot of violence, you know, a lot of, you know, just like aura and hype moments, this is exactly what you want. Like, you know, if you're okay with, you know, it not being like the most thought out philosophical series of all time, you're okay with sometimes that the author can kind of getting fast and loose with some of the things he does in this series, then I think this is a very good time. Personally, I think it's like an 8.8 out of 10. Honestly, I just really enjoyed it. Like it's just a very fun novel, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of the series turns out on a second read.